Welcome to the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam, editor-in-chief of the nationalpulse.com. It's Tuesday, September the 8th, year of our Lord 2020, and we're broadcasting live from here downtown in Washington, D.C. And a little change to the program today. We have the President of the United States who will be going live any second now. I think we can actually bring you to the President of the United States immediately. We actually had a guest on for this show, Tim Brown. He was a former firefighter and a survivor at 9/11. Really fascinating story, working with the Stephen Siller Tunnels to Towers project. We're going to have to bring you that tomorrow or the day after, I'm afraid. The President of the United States speaking live now, so we want to take you to him now.
Down, everybody. The Sunshine State is truly one of the most beautiful places on earth. I love it. And together we will preserve its breathtaking natural splendor for generations to come. We're here today to celebrate our incredible record of natural conservation and environmental protection over the last 4 years. I've been working with your both governors, your last governors. Your current governor is fantastic, by the way, and we've been working very, very hard. We've been working very hard together to make sure everything is perfect and to recommit ourselves to preserving the awesome majesty of God's great creation. Joining us in the wonderful support effort of that mission is Secretary of the Interior, a man who's worked so hard on this, David Bernhardt. Thank you very much, David. Thank you. An EPA Administrator, a very powerful man. When he says you can do it, you do it. When he says you can't, it's over with. You don't have a chance. Andrew Wheeler. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Great job. And, of course, your Governor, Ron DeSantis, who's run, not only did he run a great campaign, he's a great governor. Thanks, Ron. What a great job. What a great job he did. Of course, we'll let you know on November 3rd. I'll let you know if he did a good job, okay? Also, I want to introduce Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Nunes, who's been such a fantastic friend and supporter. Thank you very much, Jeanette. And one of the great attorney generals anywhere in the country, Ashley Moody. Ashley, thank you. Thank you very much. Florida CFO, Jimmy Patronis. Jimmy, thank you, Jimmy. Great job. A man who everybody loves. He's highly respected in Washington. He's a great senator. Lindsey Graham, South Carolina. Thank you, Lindsey. Great job. Representatives Gus Bilarakis. Where's Gus? Gus, how are you, Gus? Thank you very much. Great job you're doing. We have a lot of good ones here. We have warriors. I call them my warriors. That's what they are. And Gus, the job you've done. And Matt Gaetz. Where's Matt? Where's Matt? Where's Matt? That's not a very good location for you, Matt. I'm used to having you sitting right up here. What's going on? That's good. Matt Gaetz, Brian Mast. Brian, fantastic guy. Thank you, Brian. They are our warriors. You see what they do? They have to fight Pelosi, Schumer. They have to fight all these characters. And they do very well in the fights. We want them on our side. Greg Stubbe. Greg, thank you very much. Great job. Great job this morning, I watched. Bill Posey. Bill Posey. Thank you, Bill. Michael Waltz. Michael. Fantastic, Michael. And Ted Yoho. They've actually become my friends, actually. Ted, thank you very much. Great. Great. Where's Ted? Great, Ted. Thank you very much. Great job. And from South Carolina, State Representative Nancy Mace, who's got a very important race where I think you're doing very well. I think you're doing very well from what I hear, right? You got to win that one. That's an important one. We're behind you 1,000%. You know that, right? As well as Mayor of Miami-Dade County, Carlos Jimenez. Where's Carlos? Carlos, great. I want to thank you all for being here. My administration's proving every day that we can improve our environment while creating millions of high-paying jobs. This is a really sharp contrast to the extreme radical left that you've had to deal with. And what you're doing right now is a lot better than anything you've ever been accustomed to, I will tell you that. Joe Biden's plan would destroy America's middle class while giving a free pass to the world's worst foreign polluters like China, Russia, India, and many others. They don't have to clean up their lands, but we have to clean up ours. The left's agenda isn't about protecting the environment, it's about punishing America, and that's true. Instead of focusing on radical ideology, my administration is focused on delivering real results, and that's what we have. And we right now have the cleanest air we've ever had in this country, let's say over the last 40 years. Because I assume 200 years ago was probably better. What do you think? I would say that. What do you think, fellas? So I do want to preface that because the fake news is back there. When I say the cleanest air we've ever had over a 40-year period, Lindsay, is that okay? A couple of hundred years ago, I would imagine it was pretty good, right? To safeguard our stunning coastal areas, I signed legislation authorizing $100 million to fight the red tide and toxic algae, and to preserve the Everglades and defend Florida from catastrophic flooding. You know about the flooding. We spent a lot of money on flooding and a lot of money on hurricanes. And when your governors came to me and they said, can we have this? Can we have that? We need some more for the panhandle, they said. We have to help the panhandle. I said, without question and without any wait, let's go, right? That's what we said. You've never had it so easy in your life. He'd walk into my office, say, sir, just one more. How much is it going to cost? How about an extra $1 billion?
Your staff wasn't happy.
Yeah, my staff wasn't too thrilled. We had to override the staff a couple of times. We've directed over $500 million to fix the Herbert Hoover Dike and Lake Okeechobee. Lake Okeechobee. We fixed it up good, Mr. Mayor. We did a good job. We will now compete with this project, and we're way ahead. You know, we are way ahead, about 3 years, I think, ahead of schedule from what the original time of completion was going to be. And I'm in particular happy with what we've done on Lake Okeechobee. I know it well. Everyone said that one couldn't be done, Ron. You know that, right? They said it would never happen. You'll never get it funded. It's a big deal, and it's all gotten done, including the tide is gone. It will be gone, finally, from all of the problems that they've had with it. We've expanded funding for the Everglades restoration by over 55% compared to 4 years ago. And I also want to thank the Army Corps of Engineers for their vital work on the C-44 reservoir and the help. They are unbelievable. One thing, when they build it, I said, you know, you could do it a little bit less expensive than that. The walls don't have to be 7 feet thick. They could be like 2 feet thick. But you know, when the Army Corps of Engineers do it, they do it right. That's one thing I can tell you. We're building the wall along Mexico, between Mexico and the United States. We're over 300 miles now of wall, and that's a serious wall. That's a wall that's meant to last and meant to work. But that'll help revitalize the wetlands in the St. Lucie River estuary and the Indian River Lagoon. Oh, whoa, that's pretty good. We hit home with that one, huh? But today I have a very important announcement. I don't know if it's bigger than the things we just announced and the things that we've already done or we're in the process of completing. In a few moments, I will sign a presidential order extending the moratorium on offshore drilling on Florida's Gulf Coast and expanding it to Florida's Atlantic coast as well as the coasts of Georgia and South Carolina. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I guess you like that one the best of all. This action follows close consultation with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He's been unbelievable. Florida Senators Marco Rubio and Rick Scott, they've worked so hard, as well as South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham and Tim Scott. Lindsey, thank you. Lindsey liked the idea right from the beginning. I said, what do you think? It took you how long? About 2 seconds to say, I like it. The governor of South Carolina, a great man and a really great governor, Henry McMaster. And I also want to thank the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp. He's doing a fantastic job. And a senator who, from day one, he's been with me, Senator David Perdue, Georgia, and Senator Kelly Loeffler, and Congressman Doug Collins, and South Carolina State Representative Nancy Mace. Again, I want to thank you all. Incredible. Thanks to my administration's pro-American energy policies, we can take this step and the next step while remaining the #1 producer of oil and natural gas anywhere in the world. We're the largest producer now in the world by far. We're #1 in the world, and we are energy independent, which is a nice with fracking, the shale revolution, and the tremendous surge in American energy production, we're showing that we can create jobs, safeguard the environment, and keep energy prices low for America and low for our citizens. And you see that. You also see it when you pump the gas into your car, and you're paying sometimes a lot less than $2 lately, right? So we're doing well. And we have so much of it, I don't know. We got more than anybody ever thought possible, right? Isn't it really incredible what's happened? The approach of Joe Biden and the radical left is exactly the opposite. Their policies will destroy jobs, cause energy prices to double and triple and quadruple, to skyrocket beyond belief, and the environment will be badly hurt. If you go by that, badly, badly hurt, it'll be injured and permanently injured. And very importantly, they'll take away our energy independence, and they'll do it quickly, and they won't even know what happened to them. We're dealing with some smart customers. They know exactly what to do, and they don't like it when we're energy independent. They don't like it at all. So it's been a really amazing thing for Florida from the environmental standpoint, and I have to tell you, from the energy standpoint and from a very important level of cost. You're at a level of cost now with your electric and with so many other things caused and created by energy and fuel, the likes of which you haven't seen in 30 years. As president, I'll defend our environment, I'll defend our workers and our cherished way of life. Last month, I signed the Great American Outdoors Act, the most significant investment in our national parks in over a century, since Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt. You know, they came to my office, a lot of the senators that I just introduced, and Ron and everybody, they came to my office, they said that this will make us and make you the #1 environmental president since Teddy Roosevelt. I said, that sounds good, because I wasn't going to do it. I figured, let's not do it. But when they said that, that was like a challenge. So I said, well, why does it only have to go back to Teddy Roosevelt, which is over 100 years? Why can't we say from George Washington, right from the beginning? They said, well, we're not quite there yet, but one other bill like this will be there, Lindsay. You know that, right? But it's true. #1 since Teddy Roosevelt. Who would have thought? Trump is the great environmentalist. Do you hear that, Ed? Do you hear that? That's good. And I am. I believe strongly in it. Through this legislation, we're providing nearly $10 billion for long-delayed maintenance projects in our national parks, and Florida's helped as much as anybody and maybe more. My administration has fully or partially cleaned up 61 EPA Superfund pollution sites that were rotting all over our country, far more than Obama and Biden, no matter how far you go back, more than any administration. Since my inauguration, we've recovered more endangered or threatened species than any other administration has accomplished in its first term. Earlier this year, I announced that the United States would join the 1 Trillion Trees Initiative. We already have 1 billion trees pledged to be planted, and it's moving very rapidly. We've opened land and expanded access to over 4 million acres of public lands for hunting and fishing, including over 200,000 acres in Florida. My sons will be very happy to hear that. As the last administration pursued its globalist agenda abroad, they were all over the place. They were everywhere but here in our country. They were taking care of other lands, countries that you never heard of, they were taking care of. And they didn't do a good job there either. They neglected the fundamentals of public health right here in the United States, right here in our home. My administration is focused on ensuring crystal clean air and water. Under my administration, we've seen a significant drop in air pollution since 2017, a very significant drop for the first time in nearly 30 years. We are strengthening standards to prevent vulnerable children from being exposed to lead and copper in drinking water, including in our schools. They were exposed to lead and copper in drinking water. We've done some job with that. That was an important one. And we've invested over $38 billion in drinking water infrastructure to care for our children. I'm committed to ensuring the United States has the cleanest air and cleanest water on earth. The contrast between our vision and the radical left has never been more clear. They talk a big game and they do nothing. That's really what it is, too. They talk and talk the environment. They talk and talk. Nothing happens. It's all talk. It's all words and no action. You ever hear that? To our political opponents, environmental policy is just an excuse to advance a socialist platform that will impose trillions and trillions of dollars in new taxes and send our jobs overseas, making it impossible to open up new companies and to live less expensively. Your energy costs would be 4, 5, sometimes even under scenarios 10 times more expensive, and really you wouldn't even have energy. To my administration, environmental protection is a sacred obligation, and so it is our duty to fight for the dreams and livelihoods of the citizens we serve, and to the citizens of Florida that I know so well and that I love. This is my home. This is my home. We're rapidly restoring the greatest economy in history. We created the greatest economy in the history of our country. And then we had to close it up when the China plague came in. We closed it up. We saved millions of lives. We banned highly infected China from coming in. It was highly infected. The people were highly infected. Wuhan province, we banned them. Nobody said do it. Everybody said I shouldn't do it. Biden said don't do it. 3 months later, he admitted I was right. But we banned people. We would have lost hundreds of thousands more. But we would have lost millions if we didn't close it up. And now we open it up, and we're setting records at every single level. So we're maintaining that pristine resource of beautiful, clean environment at every single community in Florida and all over the country. We'll always defend the Everglades, and we will always safeguard the magnificent Florida coastline. We'll expand access for fishermen and sportsmen. We'll uphold your right to hunt, and we will protect your right to keep and bear arms, your Second Amendment. And I can tell you this. If Joe Biden gets in, he'll have nothing to say about it. He's not. Let's face it, Joe's shot. If Joe Biden gets in, your Second Amendment is gone. It's gone. Either obliterated to a point of being gone or gone itself, okay? You will not have a Second Amendment. And the pressure put on me in the last 4 years to make massive changes to the Second Amendment, which would have really rendered it worthless. Ron knows. The pressure put on me, very few people would have been able to withstand that pressure. They would have made big cuts and big changes. Your Second Amendment will remain powerful, will remain strong, will remain with you. We will reshore our critical supply chains, and we will bring back jobs and factories from China and other foreign polluters. And everything we do will be guided by our love of this state, its people, and its priceless natural treasures. It's a great state. From its breathtaking beaches to its shimmering bays, from its vast marshes, all those beautiful marshes, marshlands, to its wild forests, there is truly no place on earth like the great state of Florida. And I can tell you, I am so happy to have helped, because when I was first elected, you had things that were in such bad shape, and now they're fixed or being fixed at a cost of a lot of money. but they're either fixed or being fixed, and soon they'll be in better condition than they were the day they were built, which was many, many decades ago. We have things that were built a long time ago that were in a state of disrepair that you wouldn't believe. As long as I'm President of the United States, we will conserve this wondrous national inheritance. From Key West to Key Biscayne, from Tampa to Tallahassee, from the Pensacola, beautiful Pensacola. I love Pensacola. I think it was 97%. That's one of the reasons I like it. They say, how'd you do in Pensacola? I said, was that maybe 95, 97? And right up there, so that helps. It's amazing how that can help, isn't it? Right here to Jupiter, which I know very well, and we'll preserve this glorious land for our children, for our grandchildren, and for every generation of American to come. And I will now sign this order. It's an order that does so much for the state of Florida. It's an order that I'm so proud to sign. I've been talking about this with Ron and with all of the people I've mentioned for a long time. And I said, we want to get it done. And this protects your beautiful Gulf and your beautiful ocean, and it will for a long time to come. So congratulations to Florida and Georgia and South Carolina and, frankly, North Carolina. But I want to just thank everybody for being here, and this is a true honor for me to sign this order. Thank you very much.
Well, I was going to enjoy some music there. The President of the United States wrapping up very quickly today, short and sweet there in Florida, as he talks about the environment, as he talks about energy, as he talks about the Second Amendment, as he talks about Joe Biden being just dunzo in the brain. Lots to unpack there, and we'll be doing that, of course, across this network, across America's Voice. As the rest of the day goes on, I'm Raheem Kassam, editor-in-chief of thenationalpulse.com. We had an entire show, packed out show for you guys today. But of course, the president, it's very important that we cover these speeches live, as so many of the networks don't. You will always find the uninterrupted coverage of the president and his rallies here on America's Voice. So I want you to be assured of that. But we had a whole show, and the show was going to be about 9/11. As we approach the anniversary of 9/11, a very important anniversary in this country, incredibly important to me personally. We had Tim Brown, who's going to come on as a survivor. Used to work with Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Harrowing stories, but we're not gonna do that today. We don't want to rush it in and pack it in. We want to give it the due time and respect as is necessary. So tune in later on this week. We'll be able to bring you that 9/11 special here on the National Pulse. We're also going to be hearing from Dr. Paul Gosar, Congressman Dr. Paul Gosar. But I believe that Dr. Gosar, Congressman Gosar, has had good family news over the last 24 hours in the sense of an additional child or grandchild, I think, for Congressman Gosar. So he's going to be joining us tomorrow on the National Pulse. So you're stuck with me and you're stuck with Natalie Winters, but there is always much to talk about. And one of the things that we have kind of just owned in the last month has been this transition integrity. Don't look at me like that. What are you looking at me like that? You didn't know where I was going with that, did you?
No.
The Transition Integrity Project, of course, which is this document that I now carry around with me everywhere. I literally carry it everywhere. I carried it to the bar last night with me. It's an incredibly important document. All my notes and annotations are up on the National Pulse website in this document, the Transition Integrity Projects document. Now, if you're just joining us, if you're new to the National Pulse, you've never seen it before, you don't know who I am, this will tell you all you need to know about everything we do here. What we do is we watch the watchers. We look at the people who are claiming to be the experts, look at the people who are claiming to be the non-partisan people who are trying to make sure that this election is safe, secure, and legitimate. Unfortunately, we found out that the people who are involved in this Transition Integrity Project that launched December of last year, funded by George Soros and the Berggruen Institute, which is linked to the Chinese Communist Party, we found out that they're not non-partisan at all. In fact, there are lots of links between Rosa Brooke, this Georgetown law professor who is fronting the group, and Joe Biden's staff, and John Podesta, who was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager. So that's the basics of that story. When we come back from this short break we're about to take, we're going to dive in even further. We haven't gone through some of these things before, but there's some really important stuff. If you bother to read the left-wing media, which I do think everyone on our side should every so often, to get a read on where they are and what they're planning. That's how I do it. That's how I get ahead of the stories. That's how we were a month ahead of everyone else, absolutely everyone else. In this what we call the steal, right? The steal that's taking place between November the 3rd and January the 20th. So we're going to go through this New Yorker article from August the 21st, which actually gives away a lot of the players, a lot of the strategies, a lot of the scenarios that played out when this Transition Integrity Project put together a war game about the election. This is the National Pulse, and we'll be right back. Well, welcome back to the National Pulse. And a different edition today, a President Bumps Us edition, but we're always glad to throw to the President of the United States. And historically speaking, whenever I get bumped off my own show by the President, I then get a lot of retweets, either the next day or that evening by the President, so fingers crossed. We always like those POTUS retweets here on the National Pulse. We're very grateful, of course, to all of you guys and gals out there who are doing what Natalie's laptop says on the front of it now, which is fundrealnews.com. These are our supporters over at the National Pulse. You can go to fundrealnews.com URL, or you can go to thenationalpulse.com/support. We have a great plethora of offers for our supporters out there, signed books and caps and private chat channels with us and all the editorial staff and team here at the National Pulse, so that you can get the skinny, the background, the inside scoop on everything that we're doing. So head on over there, fundrealnews.com, if you fancy being a part of the team and making sure that we can continue doing investigations into these people and the like. These people being the Soros Foundations and the Berggruen Institutes and the Chinese Communist Party and all of these linked corporates and the Disneys of the world and the Bill Gates, etc., etc. I want to start off with this, Natalie. So this article came out on August 21st. It's called "What Happens If Donald Trump Fights the Election Results?" Now, a lot of people will kind of understand from the name of this article alone, it implies that the Democrats probably intend to fight the election result. What this is doing is gaslighting people into thinking that it's going to be Donald Trump who doesn't accept the result of the election. But we already know that on election night, the Democrats don't plan to concede. In fact, Hawkfish, their analytics firm, says that Trump is going to win a blowout landslide victory on election night. But Hillary Clinton says that Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances. So even if he loses every single electoral college vote, there'll be no concession from the Democrats. And that's because they've got these mail-in ballots. And we're going to get to the mail-in ballots thing very shortly on this program, and you are not going to want to miss a single bit of that. But I was going through this New Yorker article, and it stood out to me because, we all now remember the impeachment saga very well, too well. It was on our TVs all day long, right? And people were bored of it. They were tired of it. They read the transcript, as the president instructed them to do. Read the transcript. Everyone read the transcript. There was nothing wrong. There was no quid pro quo. Very obvious, self-evident situation there. But what do they do during the impeachment? I know I'm asking my own questions. I'll bring you in a second. I'm setting you up here to knock it out the park. What do they do during the impeachment? They brought in constitutional law professors. They brought in Pamela Karlan and all those other constitutional law professors to stand up there and say, Donald Trump is not a legitimate president of the United States because he gave aid to Ukraine. I mean, that's effectively what the story ended up being. But now you're seeing in this document, in this article, this by a guy called Eric Lack over at the New Yorker. So firstly, this is the Hill's report, and this is the New Yorker's report. And they both start off like this. The Hill starts off, after midnight in the East on Election Day 1876, an urgent telegram raced along the wires to top Republican officials in Florida, Louisiana, South Carolina, and Oregon. Quote, "With your state for sure, Hayes, he is elected. Hold your state." Here's the New Yorker story. On the night of November the 7th, 1876, the results of the presidential election between Samuel Tilden and Rutherford B. Hayes began to come in. America in its centennial year was barely holding together. With your state for Hayes, he is elected. Hold your state. It's almost like somebody's briefing all of this out to these lazy journalists. But I went through this, and it shows us who they plan to call as the new impeachment witnesses post-November the 4th, when the Democrats challenge the election. So you're looking at election law professors like Edward Foley. You have books which have been written. Richard Hazen, law professor at the University of California. And, I got to tell you guys and gals out there, the right-wing media doesn't do its job properly. Because we should have been onto this back in December of last year, and we weren't. We got onto it at the end of July at the National Pulse, and everybody's now trickling to the story, trying to figure out what's going on here. But they give us the answers sometimes. So we'll be able to go through some of these constitutional law professors, what they're saying, and interestingly, the scenarios that play out in this war game that they put together fascinate me, because the Democrats are saying Trump is not going to accept the election, and that there's going to be violence from the political right as a result of that. But then they actually say themselves here in this scenario, a dice roll determined that 4 million people would participate in pro-Biden street demonstration. Now, this is a war game, so, we don't know if it's going to be 4 million or 2 million or 1 million or no million or whatever. But that's their mobs, that's the left mob. And you tell me if when we see left-wing protests, they're peaceful. I don't see that. I never see that. I never see peaceful protests from the left. I always see violent riots, mobs, tyranny. And then it talks about the game ended with the Democratic Party beginning to investigate Trump and his family. This is the stuff of banana republics. This is the stuff that dictators do in ousting other leaders. They go after their families. They persecute them. They jail them. This is the Democrat Party of America effectively acknowledging and admitting that they intend to use third world, developing world political tactics to persecute President Trump, to prosecute his family, and it's all in black and white. And Natalie, I mean, I've burned through this whole segment here somehow, but it's shocking to me that they're not even self-aware enough to realize that they're putting this into articles. They're laying out the plan. But in the minute we've got left before the break, tell me why the right isn't more ahead on this.
Exactly. Not only have we been covering this issue since months prior, but we've actually forced the founder of the Transition Integrity Project, in response to the pressure that we've put on her, to admit on Twitter just last night that, quote, "I support Joe Biden and will do every legal and ethical thing within my power to help him get elected." Then she can...
Hold on. That's the non-partisan.
That's the nonpartisan.
Read that again, slowly.
"I support Joe Biden and will do every legal and ethical thing within my power to help him get elected."
That's Rosa Brooks.
That's Rosa Brooks, who's also sent nearly $21,000 to Democrats over her life and has been at private dinners with George Soros and John Podesta. So you're 100% correct when you say the media in lockstep with George Soros and big corporates are gaslighting us to think Trump is the one who will fail to concede.
We'll get him. We got him right here. Natalie Winters is on the case. The National Pulse. We'll be right back. There's some breaking news across my phone. A new Xbox for $299. You can all have Xboxes, as far as I'm concerned. Very cheap. I remember when these things were like thousands of dollars back in the day. Anyway, I get very excited about these things because one of our managing team here at the National Pulse, Nick and I, we play a lot of soccer, as you guys call it, on the Xbox. He's terrible. He's just awful. He's just endless. Isn't that right, Natalie?
Yes.
There you go.
Confirm.
So that's our wind down. It's whiskey and Xbox. Look, there's so much to go through. We have so many great stories, mostly credit to you, over the course of the weekend. a record-breaking traffic weekend over at the National Pulse website as well. I'm incredibly grateful to our supporters and our fellow travelers. Places like the Bongino Report, but especially citizenfreepress.com, which is the new Drudge. And it's just an amazing website, and I really hope that the founder is actually going to come and give an exclusive interview, first interview, world exclusive, on Friday of this week. So look forward to that, ladies and gentlemen. We're really grateful for all of the aggregators out there who are doing an amazing job in the absence, the philosophical absence, that Drudge has left this vacuum because he's full Team Biden now, apparently. So, Citizen Free Press, make sure you mark that up. The Bongino Report, whatfinger.com. There's so many great ones out there, and we're grateful for all the linkages to make sure our stories get to more people. Revolver.news and so forth. Natalie, let's start this segment by talking about immigration, because immigration is a topic that we actually haven't heard much about in the last couple of weeks. A lot of it has been the riots and the mobs and the virus and over and over and around we go. But immigration remains one of you listening?
I was pulling up the story.
I said you don't hear much about immigration because you're not listening. You definitely don't hear much about it. It's still one of the top priorities as far as the ordinary public is concerned. Is this massive immigration problem that's hitting the entirety of the Western world, because of political leaders that have believed in open borders forever. Just no rules, don't care about legality. One of the things that came out of looking into Biden and his immigration plan, again, people aren't talking about this enough. It's insane. So he wants to grant amnesty to all illegal immigrants. Now, you hear this number, 11 million, a lot. 11 million, not 11 million. That's a silly number. It was 11 million 20 years ago. We're talking about what? At least, I think now, the Yale study from 2018 says 22 million.
At least.
Illegal, at least. That was 2 years ago. Now, Biden says give them all amnesty. Let them all in. Forget about it. Legal, citizenship, everything for everyone, welfare, etc. But the White House data shows that the average migrant brings 3.5 family members with them from wherever they come from. So you're talking about 77 million people, that would mean. I know we covered this on the show last week with Michael Anton, but I don't think enough people really get your head around that number. That's 25% of the current US population that would be eligible, or at least we could project out from what we do know about this, that would be coming into the country. It's nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head. Immigration is an issue that interfaces with basically all aspects of society. From a political and voting perspective, you see bringing in more immigrants invariably leads to more Democrat voters. Socially, there's obviously cultural changes. We've seen that occurring throughout Europe. And even economically, illegal immigration and even legal immigration is probably the most pressing force that drives down the wages of American workers. So adding 77 million individuals to America from a population perspective is not only absurd, but there'd be severe ramifications for all Americans, but really for the working class.
And I'm not even saying that, day one of a potential Biden administration, there'd be 77 million people at the door. Yeah, it's going to be trickle in over the course of 4 years or 8 years or 20 years or whatever it is.
Well, actually, he said he would immediately begin working.
He will immediately. What I'm saying is those 3.5 people per family won't be getting on a plane immediately themselves. But that is still a whopping number. Even if it comes over the course of 10 years, it's a whopping number. Even if half of that number comes over the course of 10 years, it's a whopping number. And I just wonder that nobody seems to be attacking Joe Biden and the Democrats on this point. And I think it's a point that most sane Americans actually agree on. Whether you come from the left or come from the right, 77 million people is not okay to bring into the country, to just give them the green light and say, yeah, we can accommodate everything and everyone and send it all over. It can't happen. I've seen it happen to my country. Mass migration, the likes of which you couldn't believe. We have the size of the United Kingdom. We have about 650,000 people immigrating every year. That's the size of one of our largest cities immigrating every year. We're not building more cities. We've barely got enough space. And I'm just worried that it's going to happen here in the United States too. Sticking with Joe Biden, what did Chinese state media say about Joe Biden this week?
Yes, Chinese state-run media has again seemingly given Joe Biden yet another de facto endorsement. They ran an op-ed this weekend.
It's a de facto, it's a glowing in-your-face endorsement.
Yes, and they say that, quote, Biden's worldview runs parallel to Beijing's. They talk about how if Biden is, quote, truly determined to reconcile with Beijing, nothing should stop him from coming to the negotiating table. And they draw many distinctions between Joe Biden's negotiating tactics and that of Donald Trump's. They're definitely in favor of the former.
Can I just ask you a self-evident question? What would the media be doing if Russia Today or Sputnik put out an article that said Donald Trump's worldview runs parallel to Moscow's?
It'd be front page of every
It would be the front page.
Exactly. They'd call it election interference. They'd set up commissions. Facebook would crack down and censor the article. Rather, you see...
Don Lemon would have 3 hours a night to talk about it.
Exactly. But there's not a lot of right-wing media covering this either. We're really the only people who seem to be going through Chinese state media and seeing op-eds like these, which are literally on the front page of China Global Television Network. Again, there's...
Frustrates me so much. People on the right more interested in Cardi B than they are the existential threat to the United States, which is the Chinese Communist Party.
Exactly.
It's extraordinary. All right, we've got one more segment here on this. I guess it's a special now. It's a special show. Given that the president was kind enough to take the first half an hour off our hands, but we're very grateful to the president of the United States because, frankly, we're not seeing much out of Joe Biden out there on the stump, are we? I believe that Jill Biden put out an email the other day. She said she would virtually travel to Ohio or something like that. That's a very fancy way of saying you're going to set up a Zoom meeting or a Skype meeting. She's going to virtually travel to another state in the union. Yeah, okay. It's called a phone call or a text message. Why doesn't Jill Biden just text someone? You can virtually travel that way. All right, when we come back, mail-in ballots. I'm going to tell you a lot about that. We'll be right back on the National Pulse. Well, when Joe Biden still had some of his senses left, he went to the Council on Foreign Relations and he gave a long and boring speech. But just like everything, you got to go through the noise to get to the signal. And the signal was two things. Number one, it was in that speech that he admitted about effectively bribing somebody to get rid of a Ukrainian prosecutor. There was a quid pro quo by Joe Biden as Vice President of the United States to get his son Hunter off the hook, being investigated in Ukraine, you'll remember. But there was a second part of that Council on Foreign Relations speech which really piqued our interest over at the War Room show. We had the War Room Impeachment show, and now over at the National Pulse as well. I want to roll you this clip. Let's play Joe Biden.
China. I've spent a lot of time, apparently I was told by the folks of state, I've spent more time in private meetings with Xi Jinping than any world leader. I have 25 hours of private dinners with him, just he and I, and one interpreter.
25 hours of private meetings, one-on-one and an interpreter with Xi Jinping. Imagine if President Donald Trump had gone in front of the Council on Foreign Relations, or maybe the Heritage Foundation, the right-wing equivalent, whatever it is, and said, yeah, I've had 25 hours of private meetings with Vladimir Putin, just one-on-one, and there was an interpreter in the room. Wouldn't every single media organization in the entire country, in the entire world, be trying to figure out what was said at those meetings? What was arranged? What was discussed? Max Boot would be saying, oh, well, there's clearly been some, big conspiracy put together by Trump and Putin in these long meetings, and I'm probably eating caviar and whatever. They'd fabricate. Like they fabricate everything. They'd fabricate an entire narrative, an entire story. But the point is they would try and get some information, right? Of course. We all would. We'd all want to know. But Joe Biden, when he was Vice President of the United States, he had 25 hours of private meeting with the world's most dangerous dictator and tyrant. And nobody cares? We care. Natalie Winters cares. Natalie, you wrote to the State Department.
Yes. Incriminating remarks for any elected official to make, let alone the fact that Joe Biden's family has inked billion-dollar business deals with Chinese government-owned companies. So that prompted me back in May 24th this year to submit a Freedom of Information Act request, FOIA for short, to the State Department to get access to any relevant records to the meetings he was discussing those 25 hours. As you hear in the sentence, it's State Department officials who informed him that he held the record for spending the most amount of time with the most brutal dictator alive today. But we heard back about a week after that the date which we would hear back from the State Department would be April 5th, 2023.
That's 3 years later.
It's actually closer to the 2024 election than the 2020 election.
I mean, it's a very simple request.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that furnish Joe Biden with that information. So they have it, somebody there has it to hand. Somebody there's obviously recently even looked into it.
Exactly. And it's even more bizarre when you hear people on the left, you heard all throughout impeachment about how President Trump is keen on weaponizing all of his agencies and powers at his disposal. And yet you see the Trump administration State Department saying, oh, we're actually not going to release records, or we're not going to give you any information. And again, this information is worth knowing to the public, irrespective of political differences, whether you support President Trump or Joe Biden.
Look, if President Trump had had 25 hours of private one-on-one meetings with Xi Jinping, I'd want to know what was said.
Exactly. And you saw a whole impeachment. A phone call that happened.
A 15-minute phone call.
Exactly. So here's 25 hours, the world record for private meetings with Xi Jinping. And the Trump administration State Department is, A, not doing anything, and no other media organization seems interested in pursuing it.
And so you went to them, you asked for the details, very basic details. They said it would take 3 years. They didn't want to get it out. Basically, they don't want to get it out before the election.
Exactly.
It would take 3 years to do this. And then when we went back, you went back to them and shortened your request to make it easier for them. What did they say then?
Yeah, so I shortened it to the years where he was vice president, really at the height when you saw the Obama administration's pivot to Asia and when Hunter Biden was inking the most lucrative deals with these Chinese companies. So I believe the years were 2011 to 2015. And I've not heard back since. They said they would get back to me. I followed up, actually, interestingly enough, I sent them an email last night attempting to follow up again and got an automatic response that the individual who I was emailing was out of the office until August 31st. However, it's September 8th. So
Why didn't you tell me that? That's an amazing part of the story. They should have gone on to the story on the National Pulse, but the story is on the National Pulse about Joe Biden, these 25 hours of meetings and the State Department withholding the that would be required to quiz Joe Biden and just what he was talking about with Xi Jinping for 25 hours. Very quickly, before we let you guys go here today, I have a monster article up about mail-in ballot fraud, because I, unfortunately, am from a country where mail-in ballot fraud is rife, where postal vote fraud, as we call it, is rife, where the Council of Europe, which is one of the governing bodies of the European Union, actually said back in 2006, quote, and this is a hard left globalist organization, they said that there was widespread absentee voter fraud. And they said, a judge in the UK said that the level of fraud would disgrace a banana republic in the United Kingdom. In one instance, 30,000 names were removed from the ballot in just one city after major fraud was alleged. A left-wing professor at the University of Liverpool said, quote, greater use of postal voting has made UK elections far more vulnerable to fraud and resulted in several instances of large-scale fraud. And ladies and gentlemen, this is not theoretical. We're not talking about what might happen in America as a result of the Democrats' expansion of mail-in voting. We're talking about what is absolutely going to happen. That's why so many of the countries around the world, the developed countries around the world, actually ban, they prohibit, they prescribe mail-in voting for everyone except people who genuinely cannot make it to the polling station. People who are severely disabled, people who are going to be out of the country, people who are on military duty, but not just for anybody that can't be bothered to go to the polling station. We're going to get into that because there have been several different reports out of the British government, a first world developed nation. We'll get into that later this week with some of the greatest experts on this subject. In the meantime, I want to thank you on behalf of myself, Natalie, and the whole team here at America's Voice for tuning in today. The National Pulse returns tomorrow at 3 p.m. See you then.